Yara Estrada Lowe, welcome to the Right in the Head podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about Demise, the movie. How is your day going so far?
Pretty good. I was looking forward to this. So thanks again for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And just a real quick shout out to Erman Baradi for introducing us after he did last week's episode of the podcast. Very kind of him. He's a great guy.
Come on.
How did you guys meet, by the way?
So we met through somebody who was on our production initially. And so Erman was one of the first crew members that we had on board, part of the production team. So he was
Right,
brought
right.
on really early in the game.
He is a man who does many things. That does not surprise me.
He is.
So, just for people that aren't familiar with you already, what was your role in Demise? You were on it from the beginning, director, writer, everything?
Yes. So I wrote the script and I directed it, and I was one of the producers.
Okay. That brings us nicely to the theme of today's episode. See
Yes.
what I did? Yep, clever segue. So, we're talking today about when you're writing a script, knowing that you will be the one that makes this film, as opposed to writing a script trying to sell it. It's a really interesting discussion because I've been through both processes, only recently written a script that I know I'm going to make,
Nice.
and it's a different process. There's subtle differences, and I want to really pick your brains on that today. So,
Okay.
at what point in the process of creating, let's just say at what point in the process of writing the script, did you know you were going to make this movie? Was it like that from day one?
No, initially when I was writing Demise, I didn't know if I was going to direct it or would even attempt to get into that driver's seat because it's not like I ever directed a feature film before or even a short film. My directing experience was on an episodic drama years ago. And so, yeah, I just kind of like left it up to, chance to see if I was going to pass the baton and let someone else direct it, or if I was going to do that. And after a few months of thinking about it, I decided that I was the best one to execute my vision because obviously someone else will have a completely different mindset and scope of how it's going to be executed. So I thought, I better do this because I don't think it's going to come out quite the same if I were to let
Mm-hmm.
someone else do it. So
Yeah, yeah, I have that feeling with every script I write, but I know most of them will be handed over to somebody else. On that moment of deciding you were going to go ahead and do this, as a coach, I work with a lot of people that have very harsh inner critics. Was
Mhm.
it the same for you? Did you have a moment where there was that inner voice telling you like you can't do this, you're not a direct, or you can't do something this big? If you were hearing those voices, how did you overcome that?
Well, I would say I trust my instincts a lot. And if I have a strong intuition about doing something, I just go for it because everything is hard, right? So it's kind of like pick your hard. I don't know if you've heard that saying, but it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like
Mm-hmm.
choose your battles. You can either try and go for it yourself and take a chance on yourself or listen to everybody else because everyone else is going to always doubt you or, kind of question you just because, I am a Latin woman and there are not too many Latina directors out there. So I kind of go against type in the way where, I'm not really seen as a director. But I guess knowing that I had such a strong imagination for the shots already, I was pretty confident in going forth with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the moment of confidence and just having that intuition and trusting yourself. I think it's so important in this game. You said pick your hard. There's a similar expression, pick your pain.
Yes.
And I think about that very often because there's, in almost every scenario, you're choosing between two different types of pain. So maybe it's the pain of doing hard work over a long period of time,
Hmm.
or you can choose the pain of not reaching your goal. You have to pick one of them.
Right.
And I remind myself of that quite often because there's lots of
Mhm.
long days as a screenwriter.
Oh, yes.
And then piling on top of that, directing, producing. We're gonna come on to all of that because you wore many hats on this project.
Yes.
Before we get there, it's such an interesting movie and an interesting genre, or maybe that's not quite the right word. The tone is interesting. So it's kind of thriller, I would say noir as well. There's other elements in there. It's mysterious in places. How
Mhm.
did you arrive at that concept initially? Because it's not your sort of run of the mill thriller. We will get back to the chat in just a moment. Firstly, if you're enjoying today's episode, please do go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That's a great zero cost way of supporting the Right in the Head mission. It takes you about 2 seconds to click that button. If you want to go the extra mile, write us a comment as well. That will tickle the fancy of the YouTube algorithm, meaning this content shows up for more screenwriters just like me and you. Thank you so much. Back to the chat.
Right. During pre-production, working with my cinematographer, Justin Aguri, we had, months leading up to our first day of principal photography. And one of the advantages was us just having endless discussions about the look and the tone. And, I gave him a list of 90s movies to watch. And, those were like my inspiration, but I didn't really want to shoot it just the standard look and the standard way. I wanted it to have some sort of vibe and pizzazz and just that whole mystery and kind of make it our own. So we really had a lot of fun with the look and all that.
Yeah, yeah, it shows. It shows in the film. It
Yeah.
looks beautiful. Yeah, congratulations. It's the one of those movies I watch and think, how do you make stuff look like that? So, I'm not a cinematographer,
Okay.
certainly not a colorist. So when I watch movies like this, it just blows me away.
Mhm.
What was the sort of the, how am I going to put this? I'm trying to dive into what were the major differences when you wrote the script with that in mind, or maybe it was a bit later than that in the process, but were there changes that you made to the script knowing that you were going to be in charge of the creation? Because I can imagine writing notes to yourself or not worrying so much about strict formatting because the director doesn't have to understand it because you are the director. Did you allow yourself to go in different directions because of that?
Yes, I did. I guess the great thing about knowing that you're going to execute it is you can kind of see if I had so many small scenes like in between big scenes, and it was easy to really fill out like what scenes can I just crop out and just we didn't need it, or what scenes that we had to shoot it, but it's kind of up in the air in post whether that was a small scene we're going to keep or not. And I feel like as a writer, only you can really decipher those things because you're taking it to the finish line, and editing is a very long process. So
Yes, that's when the final draft of the script is written, as they say.
Mhm.
What was the very first step that you took? I imagine there's this moment where you think, I've got this script. Maybe it was even before you'd finished the script. I know I want to make this movie. Was there a person you reached out to? Because, of course, it takes a team. What
Yes.
was the very first thing you did to get the ball rolling with this?
Yes. So I contacted my producing partner, Annabelle Monroe, and we spent months looking for all the locations. And the crazy part of that was in the script, there's like over 20 locations. And so it was like, putting together this sort of maze, when it came to the scheduling, and then putting together how we're going to get a location to maybe have three locations in one. And so she was the first person I contacted because she works just as hard as I do, and she was 100% down and willing to hop on board, and she believed in the project. And I definitely needed her because this is it takes a village, to make this happen. And so, yeah, she was one of the first people that I reached out to, saying, "Hey, we have our work cut out for us. We need to go find these locations."
Was there any pushback at that point? It sounds like she was. Did you have an existing working relationship, so she was just all in straight away, or did you take a little bit of convincing?
We knew each other for about a year and a half at that point, I feel. Yeah, about that time. So we were actually going to work on another script that I had prior to that, but it just so happened that this film was the one that we were filming first. So,
Got it. Got it. What about early setbacks? There's always setbacks when you're making a movie. Do you have a
yeah.
memory of the first real moment that it was like, oh, this might not happen, or oh, this
Yes.
is way more difficult than I thought?
Yes, it was actually having to do with the many locations. My one deal breaker was that I didn't want to make a film with my name on it as being the director if it's going to look like an indie film that didn't have any money and no setting, no, great lighting. I mean, aesthetics is a huge thing for me. And that's definitely one of the struggles of being an independent filmmaker is that you don't have you know, a big budget and you don't have like all of these resources that are maybe offered to a studio, for a studio film. And so, yeah, it was like one point where I saw the hard numbers in terms of cost for all the locations. And I thought, how are we ever going to get this done? The amount was like, it cost this much. And then we had this much for all the
Right.
locations. And so we really had to be real clever and put on our sales hat and really sell the project to get like the locations that we wanted. So
Yeah, and I want to dive into that a bit more again because I'm so interested in people's inner monologue during those moments. What are
yes,
you telling yourself when you see these numbers?
yes.
Budget is down here, cost is up here. What
Mhm.
stops you from just either changing the locations to be cheaper or just dropping the project entirely? What is it that keeps you going?
Well, I thought if anyone's going to make it happen, it's going to be me. And no one is going to be able to do it for you. So you need to dig down deep and go for it because this is my life. Like I've sacrificed so much to do this, and this is what I want to do for a living. So if I'm going to break now, things will get harder in the long run. So I better have that change of attitude and really just go for it. And that's what ended up happening. One location after another, even strangers were helping us out and giving us great deals. And yeah, we just made it happen. So
All right, give me one more example of another challenge you had to over. I know there was probably hundreds, but just to give the viewers inspiration here, what was another big challenge you had to overcome? How did you overcome it?
well, let's see. Shooting a 106-page script in 17 days
Oof.
was a major challenge.
Yeah, my
Uh,
anxiety just spiked. Ooh.
yes, it's just wow. I mean, I of course wanted to have more than a few takes, for our lovely and talented actors. The rapid pace that we shot, it took a lot of prep to be able to accomplish that speed. Only because knowing that you don't have the time and knowing that if you don't make your days, it's not going to come out the way that it should. That pace, it was just crazy. But thankfully, we had our actors who were just so professional and so talented that they were able to hang on with us and keep up with the pace. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's hundreds of other challenges we could talk about. I think you've mentioned two of the biggest ones there. You've also talked a bit there about casting. And
Mhm.
another area I'm fascinated with, and I was actually at an event where it was one of Erman's event where you spoke about this movie.
Yeah.
I didn't speak to you that night, strangely enough, but I
Uh-huh.
was there and I heard Carlos
Yeah.
speak about his role in the movie. Very
Hmm.
inspirational guy. And I did a bit of research and looked into him. And Yeah, I like his vibe a lot. I think he's a great guy. I can imagine him being very cool to work with. What was the casting process like for you? Because I would say that's probably the thing that I'm the most protective over because I write comedy and so much of that is casting. So, what was that like for you as the writer, as the director? What was the sort of the lead domino that got you rolling with the casting process?
Yes, so we hired this casting company, Stella Nova Casting, and they read the script and loved it. And the two ladies were really good friends with one of our producers, and so they were really gung ho about the whole film. They actually, one of the casting directors thought of Carlo right after she read the script, and she said, "Oh, I think this actor would be great for this role. Let's have him audition." And it was prior to seeing all the actors audition, I just thought to myself, these roles are demanding, and it takes a level of talent that you don't see too often. And I thought, gosh, if just one actor that's miscast in this can just flop the whole thing. You're really hanging on a string because it's not the kind of movie where you can be like, all right, that guy or that girl wasn't so good, but it didn't hurt the film too much. It was like, no, there's three leads. You have to bring the tears, you have to bring the drama, and yeah. So we got really, really lucky with our three lead actors, Carlo, Liz, and Crystal.
Yeah, and I apologize. I believe I just pronounced his name Carlos. It's Carlo. Sorry. I've never seen. I don't think I've ever heard it said out loud before. So Carlo
Yeah.
Mendez, who gave a wonderful performance. You've talked about financing. Well, you've talked about the budget, I should say. My
Mhm.
question then would be around the financing. There's this sort of which came first scenario with a lot of productions. Do you attach talent so you can get the financing, or do you get financing so you can attach talent?
Right.
How did that happen with this particular movie?
Right. Yes, that's the hardest thing about filmmaking is the financing. And you ask one party, they're like, "Well, where's the funds?" And you ask the other party, "Well, who's attached?"
Yeah.
It's like
Can you get me a letter of intent? And can you? Yeah, it really is a pickle.
it is. It is. Thankfully with this film, just because as a producer, I'm not really on that side of things with financing and finding financing for films. I'm the type of producer that puts the film together. That's where my strength lies. But yeah, our team of executive producers were able to help with those areas of finding financing first for Demise. And that helped us out a great deal with, getting the actors on board and just getting everything that we need. So that's just how it worked out with this film.
Okay, okay. It sounds like you built a really good team of people around you to help with all the elements of the project, especially those that you're not typically involved with. And I assume those contacts are just industry contacts that you've built over the course of many years in this business. I guess that I'm asking this because I know our listeners want to know what can they do to continue to build on their careers. So it sounds like just having that really strong support network is a big win.
Yes, and I feel like it also has to deal with just just knowing the ins and outs of how to make a film. You can pinpoint really quickly if someone is excellent at their job or not. And I think that's really helpful when it comes to hiring people and taking chances on people that maybe you don't know. You can tell right away by the level of professionalism and what they bring to the table if they're going to be a right fit for your film. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Talking of professionalism, something that I'm scratching my head over
mhm,
at the moment is how to find reliable crew members. I'm
yes.
not an expert with what they do, and so I know there are resources out there, but for me, it's kind of how do I trust them to do what I need them to do on the
Yeah.
day? Because we only get one shot at this.
Yes.
What was that process like for you? Did you have a trusted resource? Was this via connections you'd already made, or was there a lot of research involved?
It was both actually. I'm the kind of director that meets everybody before we shoot anything and before they're even hired, only because I just want to have that conversation with them, even if they are a referral. I just want to make sure they have a positive attitude and that they love what they do, because the moment you hire someone that's careless about their job or doesn't really care about the film at all, they're not going to go the extra mile to do that job in the best way that they can. So that's why I like to talk to them and sort of interview them before we hire them. But it was a combination. There was a lot of crew members that I didn't know previously. And then there was a lot of people like on the camera crew that my my DP knew for a number of years. And so it's always good to have the heads of department, give you their referrals because they've worked with them before and may trust them. So yeah, it was a combination.
And you've already alluded to this, but I guess you were involved in post production as well. It sounds like you were kind of hands on with that. Is that true?
Yes.
Is
Yes.
that always been something you've been interested in, or was it this the first time you've done that with this movie? Was it your first experience post production?
Yes, it was my first experience with post-production. And if you're a director, be prepared to go through the grind because 9 months of editing is a very long time. We spent about 9 months finding all the music as well and working with my composer and my editor. And then shortly after that, I worked with my colorist for about 2 months, I think, uh, and then like 2 months of post sound. So there were a lot of firsts for me. It was definitely a learning experience too, doing things for the very first time. But once you've done it once, I feel like you can really understand how things are put together in post and why it's so crucial.
Yeah, yeah,
Every step
yeah,
of the way, it's like, you're just in agony for every moment of the film, like turning out right. So,
yeah. Did you work with a composer? Does the
yeah,
film have an original score?
it does. Yes, which is,
It
you know,
sounded good. I have to
thank
say, it
you.
sounded good. Yeah, I
Thank
figured it
you.
was probably an original.
A lot of it was, I did also license around 30 songs for the film that sounded like scores, and they were uh, a good blend. They really helped blend everything with the original scores that we had. And so it was my first time working with a composer, really talented guy named Jeff Clayton. He worked on the film for about 2 years. He was on board way before we shot. And yeah, he created a lot of the original, he created the original theme that's threaded through the film, and as well as countless of other scores. So
It's
yeah.
amazing how much goes into this. Amazing.
Mhm.
So let's recap because I've said this before. In some ways, making a movie is definitely not easy, but in some ways it is simple. There is a process. So you write this, and this is if you're making it yourself. Of course, you write the script. In this case, you decided to go ahead and make the film. So you reached out to your producing partner and you start location scouting and trying to figure out how to do that with the budget. So at some point, there's financing involved. You go through a process with casting and with selecting your crew. You schedule the shoot dates. You work in the post production. So it is kind of a simple process, even though it's very challenging. Have I missed something? Is there a big chunk of that journey that we didn't talk about yet?
Well, there's all these other things in between, like production insurance and renting your cameras and lenses and all that stuff with, storing your equipment and all this other fun stuff. So, yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it. A lot. Once you've got that movie in the can, ready
Mhm.
to go, what was next for you? I know that you now have distribution. Was there festivals involved prior to that? What was that journey like?
So, it took me, so after we wrapped, I didn't find the editor that became our editor for this film. It took me like 3 months to find him. I kind of went to a couple of editors before I found the one that I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. Let's just, yeah, we have to have him. I took the time to watch all the footage for 2 months because I really wanted to see everything that we shot. That way, I'm really familiar with everything. And then when we're going into editing, the workflow is a lot better, opposed to me just, not knowing, like, oh, what was that shot, or I can't remember, or that sort of thing. So, yeah, I was really familiar with everything that we shot. And so by the time we began the editing process, I was like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah, I love that. That's watching all the footage, becoming familiar with it, looking at which takes might work well together. I can imagine that being sort of a flow state for you, just spending hours on that and
Yeah.
feeling so prepared by the time you actually go into post production.
Hmm.
Let's talk about distribution. You can currently watch Demise in a number of different places.
Hmm.
What was that process like? Had you been through it before, or was this the first production that you actually arranged distribution for, or secured distribution? I shouldn't say arranged, that makes it sound too easy.
Yes, this is my first time, and I didn't know what to expect. It just seemed like such a huge mountain to climb. I was definitely out of my element. I think the delivery of the film, once you get distribution, was a whole other thing on its own. But one thing that we did do was we hired a law firm called Ramo Law, and they help package your film and send them out to different distributors to see who has an interest in taking a meeting with you. And I feel like that was our smartest move because nobody on our team, and definitely not me, I was not in any type of like connections with anybody that worked with a distributor. And it's just a whole other world. And yeah, they submitted our project, and we had, the final cut and everything, and we sent a link to them. And so they were doing the submissions, and because they had such a good reputation, they received emails saying, let's take a meeting, or no, we'll pass, or maybe you didn't hear from them. So that's kind of like how it went. But yeah, that's uh, Gravitas actually responded, and they took a meeting with us, and I felt like they were the best distributor for this film. So
What was the name of the company you mentioned before that? The one who helped you sort of package it and send it out?
yeah, they're a law firm called Ramo Law,
Ramo
RAM.
Law.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
It sounds like that might be an interesting resource for some of our listeners at some point. So,
yes, they help independent filmmakers, and they will package your whole film together and submit to distributors. And it's a better way because if you try and do this on your own, and if you don't have a name, the chances of getting anyone's reply in your email are really slim. So it's better to factor in that cost into your budget, that you're going to need to hire a law firm to do the submissions for you. And then you're also going to need to factor into the budget that you're going to need to do delivery of the film once you do secure distribution. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I wonder if you're comfortable answering this. If you're not, don't worry.
Okay.
But I want to know roughly what the budget for this ended up being, because I think some listeners are thinking this is too big for me. The scale is too much. I could never raise that much money. What
Yeah.
what what kind of ballpark are we in for this movie?
750,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
750,000.
Yeah.
And if you're factoring in everything that we've discussed
Hmm.
over the last, how long has it been? Half an hour.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem unreachable. It doesn't seem unreachable. I don't think anyway. What was the
No.
budget when you started out? That's a very different question.
Oh, yeah. It was 300,000.
Yeah, there
So,
you go. There you go.
yeah.
Budgets have this funny habit of expanding with time. And
Hmm.
how long did this project, do you have a rough idea of from when you first started the script all the way to, yay, we've got distribution? What was that journey time?
I would say, let's see. So I wrote the script in the summer of 2020, and surprisingly, that only took like 3 months. I didn't have a job, so all I did
Yeah,
was
I was
type.
going to say, I'm guessing a lot of scripts were written that summer.
Yes. So we started pre-production in, I feel like it was late October of 2021, spent months in pre-production, and then we filmed in April of 2022, spent like about a year in post. So by like February, March, we were done with, editing, sound, color, music. And then, yeah, then that summer we had our casting crew screening. And then that fall, we did the submissions and then got a distributor. And then it got released this year, February of 2024. So I would say, uh, roughly a 3-year process, which is relatively fast for.
Yeah, 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 relatively fast. And I'm wondering, throughout that journey,
Mhm,
what would be, I'm sure you've learned so much.
mhm.
Could you maybe give us a top one, two, or three sort of take home lessons that you've really absorbed into yourself and you think that's going to help you to grow for the next project?
Yes, I would say creatively, so, sometimes us screenwriters, we are so married to that thing that we have in our head, and it's like do or die if it doesn't happen exactly like that. I would say, be a little open-minded about that and kind of narrow down the scenes that you're not willing to compromise on. But you never know, because you will, if you are ready to play and have some fun with directing, you never know what, you know, more like what better shots you're going to get because you had an open mind. Or, sometimes you can be on the set of that location and think, oh, you know what? I wanted to do the scene here when we were location scouting, but now that I'm seeing it in this light, I think this area is a lot better. So I would just say have fun with it, because you never know what more beautiful shot, or just try it out. I mean, if you're the one directing, of course there's time constraints, but I would say, just go with your gut. And I feel like a lot of people forget to have fun with it, because that's when your passion can really shine through. If you're willing to take those risks in the moment, and you never know what you're going to find. So
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
that, I would say, on the business side of things with production, um, if somebody's not a right fit for your film for whatever reason, don't be afraid to fire them, because not to be rude or mean, but
Real talk. Real
you
talk on the
know,
Right in the Head podcast.
it's like this ship is headed, very fast in this direction. And if someone's trying to pull you down or weigh you down or be negative, you got to let them go and keep moving. Because at the end of the day, when nobody's around and you're in post production, this film will sit with you, and you don't want any regrets. You don't want to feel like, oh, why did I hang on to that person? Now they kind of ruined this thing in the shot, or I wish I would have did this differently because of this person. It's like, let it go, stick with your guns. Your name's going to be on it in films forever. So
Yeah. What was that moment like? Did you have a moment where there was a first screening and you saw your name on the screen?
yes, it was
Talk us through it. Talk us
body.
through it. Let us into the dream a little bit here.
So we had our cast and crew screening over at the Culver Theater in Culver,
Beautiful.
beautiful place.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was the first time that anyone had seen the film on, to begin with. And so it was just a surreal experience, kind of like an outer body experience. My whole family was there and our friends, and it was like 200 people who showed. Every seat was filled, and it's kind of nerve-wracking in a way, but then it's just kind of like rewarding, and you feel like this sigh of relief, like we did it, like this is what we did, it's done, there's nothing more you can do at this point, it's finished. And so it was an amazing experience. Yeah, it's just so rewarding.
Do you think this experience has changed your direction as a writer? Are you still going to try to write, pitch, and sell? Or do you think from now on you're just going the way of the writer director?
Writer director for sure. I feel like, yeah, I feel like everything that I write now, I definitely want to direct it. And you only get better with you keep doing it. The more you do it, the better you get. So I feel like this is a good starting point as a director, and I just want to keep doing it. And so I'm now on my hopefully next project that I'm, I just wrote another screenplay and I hope to direct that. So
What can you tell us about this project without giving anything away? Is
sure.
similar,
No,
similar theme, similar
actually,
tone, or completely
no,
different?
it's completely different genre. It's a Christmas rom-com that
Hmm.
has a mainly a Latin cast. It's a totally different, you know, everything storyline. It's just one of those PG-13 romances. So yeah.
Well, I happen to know somebody at 20th who's looking for a PG-13 Christmas movie right now.
Oh,
So when it's ready, let me know.
oh, it's ready.
I only know this because I also have one of those in my portfolio, and I sent it to this person, and they said it's a little bit too family friendly. We're looking for something more PG-13.
Oh,
So
okay.
there you go. It's a Christmas miracle happening live on the podcast. So if there's people, wrapping this one up now, if there are people listening to this, let's just say there's a screenwriter out there who's listening to this and they've got a script and they're thinking about going in this direction, but they've still got that, I don't know that I can take this on. What kind of words of encouragement could you offer to that person?
I would say that if you don't know how to make films and you want to direct, I would hop on any independent film that you can get your hands on because that's how I learned directing. I was a script supervisor. I was a first assistant director. I tried every position. I think one time I even tried camera operating and set decorating. I mean, the list goes on, but you really begin to understand how important every piece of the puzzle is. And you will be in a better place when you recognize the job, and then you'll be able to hire those heads of departments that's able to help you with everything because everything is delegated, right? The lighting, the hair and makeup, the wardrobe, everything is delegated. And so you are definitely the better your team is, the better you're going to be. But with that said, what else did you say?
Any advice to somebody who's got the script, who wants to make the movie, just isn't sure whether they can do it or where to get started?
Okay, so yes, learning how to make a film. And I would say if you have a strong imagination on how this should be executed, I would say go for it because you and your cinematographer are going to be working hand in hand. And if he's great, well, he's not going to shoot something shitty looking. So you're in good hands already. So
That's in the project brief. Don't film something shitty looking.
choose your members wisely, choose your crew members wisely.
Solid
Um,
advice.
I
Yeah.
mean, yes, and you can start small too. You can do a short film and work your way up. But I feel like this is, we have this one life, and I feel like it's better to bank on yourself and take a chance on yourself, even when nobody will, because only then can your true talent shine and you can show people whether you can do this or not. And you can show yourself whether you can do this or not. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what it comes down to is the least amount of guesswork you can give somebody else to do, the better. So if you can show them that you can write a script, that's great. But if you can show them that you can write a script, shoot a movie, edit the thing, secure distribution,
Yeah.
they've got nothing left to imagine. They know you're good at this.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
whole process. And I think it even comes down to, advice that I would give writers is try directing, try acting, try
Mhm.
editing, because all of it makes you a better writer. You see it from a much more holistic perspective. They
Mm-hmm.
all feed into each other. The more I write, the more I can edit. The more I edit, the more I can direct. The more I direct, the more I can write. It's very symbiotic relationships.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, this has been an absolute blast. This has been a great walkthrough of the genesis of the idea all the way through to pre-production, filming, editing, everything. I think we've covered so much here.
Yeah.
Where can people go if they want to learn more about you personally, or you as a director, or watch Demise, the movie? We will put every link we can in the description.
Okay. Awesome. Well, you guys can watch Demise. It's streaming on Amazon Prime, Vudu, Roku, Tubi. There's probably a few more. And then you can find me on Instagram at Yara Estrada _Lowe. That's Lowe. And then we have a website as well, demisethefilm.com.
I will make sure all of that goes in the description below this video so people can click through and have a great time watching the movie, and hopefully it will inspire them to go on a similar adventure, because I do think more writers need to do what you've done. I applaud you for doing it. I think it's so brave, so stressful, and yet you managed to bring this sort of joy to the whole process, and the same joy that you've brought to this interview. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Right in the Head podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You know you want to. It's a great zero-cost way to support the mission we are on here at Right in the Head, to share wellness information with the screenwriting community. If you want to go ahead and leave us a comment as well, it will please the YouTube algorithm. Therefore, this content will get shown to more screenwriters around the world. Finally, go ahead and click on the videos being suggested up here, maybe down here, depends on the end plate, and we will see you there. Wow, this is awkward.